Hello again and welcome back. This is the March-April installment of TeamBuilders Worldwide video newsletter. Spring is in the air. It's an exciting time, so we're going to talk a little bit more about that change that we went through with the last issue. Let's do a little bit more of a deep dive and talk about how we can assimilate your team members in when change occurs. So come along with us again. Hello again. I'm Nick Connor. Welcome to this installment of TeamBuilders Worldwide video newsletter. Thank you very much for tuning in. Last episode, we talked a lot about team dynamics, stages of team development, and of course how change impacts that. Today we want to talk a little bit about how we deal with change. If you're like a lot of our clients, then change has been taking its toll. A lot of folks are having issues with this. Of course, when we talk about change, we know that change creates uncertainty. And unfortunately for most of us, distrust is the offspring of change. So, what do we do in a changing society? Well, there's ways to assimilate new team membership. Let's talk about teams first. What is a team? I know we toss the phrase around a lot. Okay, I'm a member of the IT team. You know, these guys are the finance team. But when we talk about true blue teams, they have three characteristics. Number one, they struggle for shared aspirations. In other words, do we have a common goal? Number two, is there measurement and measurable performance? I got to tell you something, guys. If we don't know where we're going and we don't know we got there, how do we know that we're operating well? You got to have measurable performance. Number three, and here's the kicker, joint accountability. What do I mean by that? Well, the thing about joint accountability is that when things go well, you're able to look around the room at each other and say, you know what, we did really well. But when things don't go so well, you've also got to look around that same room with those same team members and say, things didn't go so well. Unfortunately for most of us, and you can probably relate to this, when things don't go so well, we start to see the corporate salute come out. Oh, that wasn't us. It was those guys. We did our job. And all of a sudden now we don't have joint accountability. It's individual accountability. See, very often when our clients call us, we'll start talking about team building, and one of the first questions we'll ask them is, do you need to be a team? And they'll say, what do you mean by that? We'll share this definition. Now, nine times out of 10, they'll say, absolutely, that's where we want to go. Some folks say, no, we operate in work groups. That's great. But let's say we are operating in teams. Let's deal with this thing we call change. Change has occurred. New team membership. What do? How can we assimilate them faster? Well, number one, you got to mark them. What do I mean by that? Branding. I know this sounds silly, but bear with me on this. Look, if we have cups, if we have caps, if we have shirts, whatever the team has, the new team member should have that first. Do everything in your power to make them feel that they are part of this group, not from the outside looking in, hoping to eventually get over here with these guys. Brand them. Mark them with whatever you got. Stationery, pens, mark them. Number two, make it public knowledge. I cannot tell you how many of our clients have told us, you know what, all of a sudden somebody came up to us and said, geez, so-and-so is now on your team? When did that happen? I tell you, I can't think of feeling more like an outsider if folks don't know I'm a member of this team. Make it public. Celebrate it. Announce it. Let folks know, look, here's our new team member. We're so happy to have them here. Here's what their role is. Here's what they'll be doing. Also, assign them a sponsor. Get them a mentor. It is hard enough as it is to try to hit the ground running, go 200 miles an hour while the team is in full stride for a new team member to get on board. Get them that person, that sponsor that can help them assimilate much faster. Get them on board. Give them the do's and don'ts of the team. Which brings us to the next piece. What are the rules of engagement? What do we mean by rules of engagement? Well, basically, remember, teams form, they storm, they norm before they perform. What are the norms? What's acceptable? What's not acceptable? What's the culture? What are we allowed to do? Not allowed to do? If you can assimilate them in the rules of engagement and what the norms are much faster, then they won't be breaking them. They won't have to learn them themselves. You are getting them into the process much, much faster. Now, last but not least, I cannot tell you how important constant feedback is. Give each other feedback on a regular basis, good, bad, or otherwise. Folks can take the bad news. They'd rather hear it directly than they hear it on the side or through triangulation. Teams should always be giving each other feedback. Remember, conflict's not a dirty word. It's a good thing. You want that in your teams. All right, so we're assimilating. We're a team. What do we do now? How do you become a team? How do you solidify your team? Number one, what's your mission? What is it we're trying to accomplish here? And by the way, mission and vision. Vision is a very powerful thing. Let's talk about vision for a second. We did a lot of work back in the 90s with an organization that pretty much had a lot of government projects. This particular team we worked with, these guys worked on fighter jets. Now, they worked on screws, rivets, nuts, and bolts they made for the fighter jets. That's what their jobs were, screws, rivets, nuts, and bolts. Now, they worked directly with engineers. And the engineers would always tell them, look, just make screws, rivets, nuts, and bolts. Don't worry about the other stuff. Well, we'll take care of it. But they said, no, we're in the field. We have some input. Just make screws, rivets, nuts, and bolts. Well, we were brought in to work with these guys. Why? Morale was terrible. Absenteeism going through the roof. Productivity was just awful. So we were brought in. We had a 2.5-day session with these folks. Now, at the end of 2 days, kind of scratching the surface, weren't really getting to the root cause. And we were scratching our heads. What's going on here? Finally, on the 3rd day, we had an epiphany. We said, here's what we're going to do. We got them out at breakfast, got them on a bus, went out to the Air Force Base. Remember, this is the 90s. We could do this. Spent the morning just watching these fighter jets come out of the hangars and go and do these test flights. Why'd we do that? Because these folks that make screws, rivets, nuts, and bolts got to see the final product. The vision, the mission became extremely clear to them. We didn't say anything the whole morning. We just got in the bus, went back, and that's when we asked the first questions. We said, all right, guys, got to know, what are you thinking? Somebody stood up and said, you know what, just dawned on me today, my job is not about screws, rivets, nuts, and bolts. I make engines. Somebody else said, you know what, I feel like I make jets. Finally, this woman stood up and said, for the first time in my life, it dawned on me that my job is not about screws, rivets, nuts, and bolts. I help defend my country. See, the vision, the mission became clear to these people. All of a sudden they went back, they knew what the sense of purpose was, the whys of their business. Every team needs to know the whys of their business, their sense of purpose. They went back and it was so neat to see them. They're fired up. They even got these shirts made up to say, we make jets. Now what they wanted the shirts to say, because they make screws, rivets, nuts, and bolts, and they deal with the engineers, is that, screw you engineers, we make jets. Of course that wouldn't fit, so they stuck with the we make jets part. Point being, the ownership that they had, the vision, the mission was very clear. And there's a lot of organizations out there that have wonderful visions, wonderful missions that are intact. We have a pharmacy who's a client who says, we promote good health. We have a florist that we work with. You ask anybody what they do, what their mission is, they say, we sell beauty. They don't sell flowers, they sell beauty. Now our favorite is of course, it's a makeup company that we work with, and their mission, their vision that they put together is, we sell hope. And it makes us laugh, because I think about that every time I travel when I see these Ziploc bags of hope going through the conveyor belts as folks are traveling. Point being, you got to have that mission, you got to have that vision. Once you have that in place, then focus on what your goals are. What's the SMART model that we're operating under? Specifically, what are we doing? How are we measuring it? Is it achievable? Is this relevant to what we do? And of course, is it timely? When do we make this happen? Make that concrete. Once you have that, roles and responsibilities got to be intact. Of course, your rules of engagement always have to be there. What are the norms? What's our decision-making process? Do we go by consensus? If I disagree in a meeting, how long do we stay there with disagreement? When I leave the meeting, am I on board? That's an important factor. Last but not least, measurement and assessment. We have to know whether we're achieving our goals. Very important with teams. So, to sum up, new team members, mark them. Make it public. Assign a sponsor. Tell them what the rules of engagement are, and of course, give them constant feedback. Now, as we always say, if you only use this once, it's been stealing. If you use this information more than once, it's been research. So take it, use it. Good luck with your teams.